Hello, everyone. Welcome in our new event, Rejection-proof Grant Proposal. This intensive session organized by African Women in GIS and TAG Nigeria. Thanks to Dr. Alsayed Mashaheet for accepting our invitation. I'm sure we are honored to have you as our speaker tonight. This session is moderated by Mr. Blessing Oladoja from the secretary from TAG, and Safinaz Mubarak, African Women GIS Northern Africa Zonal Coordinator. And I am Dr. Noha Abdelwarth, African Women GIS Events and Training Coordinator. So before the main presentation, I will start with a brief about African women in GIS and TAG Nigeria. So African Women GIS, we are a community made up of African women around the world who work, study, or are enthusiastic about the geospatial industry and its related fields. The community aims to allow its members to be themselves, create network, gain mentors, get career advice, partake in geo projects to improve their portfolios, access job opportunities, as well as geo course information and showcase their work to the world. Delighted about our collaboration with TAG. TAG is a non-governmental or non-profit organization and a gathering of young achievers fully dedicated to making a difference through positive impact and visionary leadership. At TAG, all have a role to play in making the world a better place, no matter how little it is. We should never lose sight of the tremendous potential deposited in us from creation and our fulfillment. And our fulfillment here on the earth lies in effectively utilizing this potential to its fullest. For further information about both communities, please stay to the end of the session. We will present 4 presentations about TAG and African Women GIS, and please check the chat box for the links to join and follow African Women GIS and TAG. Also, you will find the registration form for the participation certificate. Another reminder, please, this session is being recorded, so you will find the recording in African Women GIS YouTube channel soon. Now, I'm glad to introduce our estimated speaker, Dr. Alsayed Mashaheet, who brings a wealth of experience in grant proposal writing. Dr. Alsayed Mashaheet is an assistant professor of plant pathology at the Faculty of Agriculture, Damanhur University, Egypt, and training consult at CABI for Egyptian Knowledge Van. He is leading the local and regional training on responsible conduct of research and scientific publishing and communication, participated by more than 28,000 participants over the last 3 years. Actually, for me, the sessions of Dr. Alsayed and CABI it was incredibly helpful in writing my own thesis and my research papers. So thank you so much for your efforts to support all researchers. Dr. Said graduated from Faculty of Agriculture, Alexander University in 2004. Has his master's degree in plant pathology at Alexandria University and the Agricultural University of Athens in 2010, and his PhD in plant pathology at North Carolina State University, USA. Also received two postdoctorals fellowship at NC State University and Virginia Tech University. Dr. Said, mashallah, received several national and international recognition for excellent and awards. Also, he is the principal and co-principal investigator of a two-funded grant from STDF and NRC of Egypt and ASRT. So with this such a remarkable accomplishment and a track record of securing substantial grants, we are privileged to have Dr. Alsayed Mashaheet share his insights and experience with us today. So now, Dr. Alsayed, the floor is yours. And before you start, please, all the links to follow Dr. Alsayed and CABI organization will be sent in the chat box now. And also, please drop your questions, and Dr. Alsayed will answer it during the question and answer section. So I will stop by sharing. Okay.
Thanks so much, Dr. Noha, for the kind invitation to join you in this session, and for your proactive approach and all the great work that you do on behalf of the African women in GIS. I also would like to thank our colleague Safinaz Mubarak and Mr. Blessing for their kind support in organizing this event. It's my pleasure to join the African women in GIS and TAG Nigeria in this great effort to support our colleagues in all around the world. I've seen people introducing themselves, and I can see that it's a global community already. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about, because it's one of the key topics that we all actually need to hear about and to share experiences about, and to support each other to achieve grants and to support our research projects and research groups. This is one of the most attended sessions of our session in CABI. We had more than 7,000 participants participating in this session before. So I'm very glad to bring to you what I have learned from all those colleagues, and what I have learned from my own experiences and from my own pitfalls and successes over the last years. So without further ado, let's briefly introduce you to CABI. No, I'm sorry. So a very quick introduction to CABI, the organization that I am honored to represent today here. Just to give you an idea about who we are and what we do, very quickly, and then we're gonna go straight to our topic. So CABI is the Center for Agriculture and Bioscience International, أو المركز الدولي للعلوم الزراعية والبيولوجية in Arabic. This is a not-for-profit organization established over like 100 years ago, and its mission is to support improving people's lives around the world, especially in developing countries, by providing them with scientific information and expertise to basically help them address any issues they face, especially with issues with global concerns like food security, and through science and communication, definitely. CABI has 50 member countries from all over the world, and they have offices and representation almost in every, not almost, in every continent around the globe. They are also committed to gender balance and supporting women, especially with women being the core power behind agriculture. CABI's activities span from international development and research projects around the world microbial services and holding a huge microbial stocks and from all over the world. Publishing, CABI is a publishing house and also an aggregator for publication in the relevant fields. CABI also provides access to collects and maintains and provides access to several databases in agriculture and life sciences. CABI also leads the e-learning sphere in agriculture, and CABI Academy is one of the leading e-learning platforms in this with this respect. In terms of the geographic coverage for the content published by CABI, it comes from all over the world. However, it's just like all the other publishers. Most of the publication comes from Europe and North America. That's why CABI appreciates any publication that comes from all the other parts of the world. These are the different topics that CABI contents cover: animal science, plant science, forestry, aquatic science, environmental science, food science, human science, and tourism. CABI also is committed for open access. That's why CABI hosts the Agri Archive, which is the preprints platform for agriculture and allied sciences. CABI also is the mother organization for SciDiv.net, which is a huge network for science communication around the world. CABI also is honored to communicate with you and come in contact with you on all social media platforms. So please feel free to reach out to CABI and learn more about CABI through the links that our colleagues have kindly shared in the chat box. If you have any questions about CABI, please hold on to them or write them in the chat box. I will be more than happy to answer those at the end of our session. And for now, it's time to talk about rejection-proof grant proposals. To our intensive session today, that we will walk you through it from discussing, how to write a rejection-proof grant proposal from A to C. If we take a look at the process of writing and receiving a grant, writing a grant proposal and receiving the grant, we can divide it into three main stages: the pre-writing stage, and the writing stage, and the post-writing or the post-submission stage, or the post-writing stage. Let's start with the pre-writing stage, and to achieve any objective, we need to know why we need it, and to charge our batteries with all the motivations that will push us through the process and will enable us to succeed. So why grants? Why do we need grants? And the answer to this question is very important for every one of us, because it's going to differ from one person to another. But overall, there are professional reasons. Some of us might need to obtain grants or receive grants to qualify themselves to apply for faculty positions abroad, especially if you are trying to apply for a position in the US or Canada or maybe Europe. They will request that you provide them with evidence of commitment to seeking and obtaining grants, because you will be responsible of a research team, and you will need to provide financial support to your lab and to your research team. Additionally, if you will be applying for, or if you already are a postdoctoral fellow, you will need to participate in writing grant proposals, and also probably to receive a postdoctoral fellowship you will need to showcase that you already have such experience. We also might want to write grants to establish professional collaborations, to establish new research groups, laboratories, departments, or collaborate with different, research groups, laboratories, different departments, different colleges or universities, all within, the country, nationally, or maybe regionally, or continentally, or globally. We also write grant proposals to establish governmental and industrial and not-for-profit organizations collaboration as well. There is also a long list of financial reasons why we should write and try to receive and to acquire and to obtain research grants. One of which is salaries, especially in developing countries, which is something that differs from developing countries and developed countries. In developed countries and especially in Western universities, researchers are not expected to receive salaries from their the grants that they receive. However, in developing countries, because of the low salaries of researchers, this might be one of the reasons. We also need grants to cover the research expenses for equipment, chemical supplies, and outsourcing for samples and other analysis that we might need. We also need grants to cover the publication, whether it is for papers, reports, or extension documents, or thesis or dissertations, publication. We might need grants also for events, organizing events, for attending, for traveling domestically for research purposes, or for attending conferences and so on, to establish institutional infrastructure, to enable ourselves to develop business and to take our ideas from the research phase into applying for patents and maybe starting a startup for your idea. So there is a long list, as you see, of motivations that would encourage us to apply for grants. After all those motivations, we need to identify our funding sources. In order to apply for a grant, we need to find a call. And to find a call, we need to be aware of the funding agencies, or what we could call your funding sphere. What are the sources around you that you could use for funding your research? Definitely, we need to know our funding sources and our funding sphere, and that starts with our institutional funds. Our institutions might provide research funds themselves, and a good place to seek those funds is the project management units at your own college or at your own institution. It's also good to talk to and to ask your colleagues about how to identify the potential funding sphere, the potential funding sources that you could seek. And definitely they will be aware of at least the institutional funds. There is also the national funds, and those are the national organizations that are designed or are tasked with providing funds to different institutions within the country. So, for example, in Egypt, we have the STDF, or Science and Technology Innovation Funding Authority, and also we have the Academy of Scientific Research and Technology. And these two major institutions are national funding agencies that funds research, all over the country here, for example. So for you, it's important for you also to know where exactly the national funds could come from. Try to know it yourself. If you don't know, at least ask your colleagues and seek the knowledge about those national funds. There are also the regional funds. So, for example, here in Egypt, we are part of the Mediterranean basin area, and we're part of Africa. We're part of the Middle East region, and each of those regions has its own, funding initiatives and funding sources. And for each of us, we need to know what are the regional funding sources that are available in our discipline and for our country. There are also the international funds, and these are the funding sources that are available globally. And it's very important for us to know how to find them. And I will give you a quick example for one of those funding sources that I was checking right before starting the session. And I'm just going to share the screen in a second for you to take a look at. So this is one of the platforms that has been launched recently. It is funding institutional from Elsevier. It's a new platform, so you might not find all the funding sources that you might be looking for at the moment. However, I can tell that it's improving very, very quickly, because you can see differences every day and every week and every month in this platform. You can search for funds. You can seek suggestions for funds, and definitely if you have an account and you have received funding from any of the agencies there, you might find your own sources. What is very nice about this platform is this interactive global map here. And as you can see, by hovering over your own country, you will be able at least to identify the national funding agencies, and based upon your Scopus ID, you also might receive some suggestions. So when I looked for funding sources here in Egypt, as you can see, there are 3 funding sources, as you can see, ASRT and SDDF, and they have added also the U.S. Embassy in Egypt as a third major source. There are more than that. However, these are the ones that have been listed here. That's why I pointed out that you might not find all the resources, but at least there are some, and they are adding more. Based upon your Scopus account or Scopus ID, researcher's ID, you might receive some suggestions, and this is one of the grants that I was very interested in, but I realized that it's for women only, which was a little bit frustrating for me, because the topic is very, very nice and is very exciting. So I wish you ladies all the best applying for this type of grants. And you can search for yourself. And if you click on any of those funds, you will receive more description about it and eligibility, and also contacts for whom you should contact, and they allow you also to visit the announcement page, so that takes you to the funding source that you might be able to explore more and identify more information about the funding source. So this is an example of a platform that would give you access to international funds that you might be seeking, and you might be able to use. And again, feel free to ask your colleagues, to ask your professors, to ask your whoever you think would be able to advise you and give you more information about it. There is also the industrial funds, where private entities and industrial entities might be willing to fund your research, especially if your research is relevant to their business. And this is one of the examples of one of the platforms that provide research grants, industry research grants. And you could scan the QR code for to have to be able to access any of these, or at least to land on the homepage of any of these resources. There is also the not-for-profit organizations, where you can identify not-for-profit organizations and contact them and reach out for funds that they might be able to provide for your research. Organizations such as Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and so on. These are foundations that could help a lot. Once you get to know your funding sphere, you can start selecting your grant proposal, or selecting the call that you will be applying for. And how can we select the call that we will apply for? To do so successfully, we need to be aware of the timeline of calls, announcements, and if you can identify a schedule for grant proposal announcements from those different platforms, that will enable you to have suitable timing for working on those grants and preparing yourself ahead, especially when they open their grants. It's usually closed within a month or so, unless it's an international collaboration, which definitely will take longer, and they will allow for more time for you to apply. So you need to prepare ahead, and you need to be aware of the suitable announcement and the deadline expected for each of those. And as you can see, it's just a month. So if you're not aware of this call ahead of time, probably a month might not be long enough for you, or it might be. But knowing the announcement schedule and the deadline dates ahead is one of the key steps for you to prepare yourself ahead. The other criteria that we need to use is the technology readiness level of our idea that we want to seek fund for. So we need to be aware of where exactly in this continuum our ideas are. Are we still at the idea development stage, or we have already developed our idea, but we are at the idea validation, or we have already validated our idea and we need to produce a prototype, or do we have already a prototype and we need to move forward to the production, whether we develop a pilot system, or we need to move forward for the full-scale commercialization, and knowing where exactly our situation is and what exactly the call is seeking to fund is very important. So we need to know where we are and what they are targeting. So if you are still in the idea development and they want someone with a prototype, it's going to be a mismatch. But if you have an idea and you want to validate it and they want to fund idea validation grants at the idea validation stage, that will be a recipe for success, and so on. The other important step is to know all the contract terms and conditions in advance, if you can, because writing grant proposal is it takes time and takes effort, and it's a teamwork. And if there is something in the contract that you will not be able to fulfill, something like time commitment, restrictions on travel, or rules for ownership of patents and outputs that you cannot comply with, or a certain publication requirement that you may not be able to fulfill, it is very important to know that ahead, so you don't waste your time and your efforts and your colleagues' time and your colleagues' effort in writing for a grant call that will ask you to sign a contract that you cannot comply with. And a good place to get these information is someone who have received such a call before or such a grant before, or the funding agency, and they will appreciate that, and they will respect your eagerness to check for this before you apply. You also should look for grant calls that are frequently posted and frequently repeated. Something that if you can't achieve in 1 year, it's going to come the next year and the year after. Something that is consistent, so you have repeated chances. If you, for some reason, missed the first round, it will come back again. You want something that will be consistent, so the objective is still the same, even if they change some words here or there. They still funding the same group of target recipients. So you should look for consistency to make sure that you will have some repeated chances. You also should look for grant calls that match your qualifications. For example, this grant is looking for someone who received his PhD from abroad, and if you are within this category, that means you are under their radar already, and it's important to start with that, because if you have the qualifications they are looking for, that gives you some advantages. You also need to have 100% eligibility, because if you miss any of the eligibility checks here, you will be disqualified, and your grant proposal will not even advance to the review stage. And that's why the first stage is the eligibility check. And usually the results of this doesn't take too long, maybe a month or so after the closing date or for receiving applications. So keep your eye on the decision, the eligibility decision of your application, because if you are not eligible, if you have applied for a call and they found you ineligible, that means you can try to apply somewhere else instead of just wasting your time waiting. You should also look for the evaluation criteria for the different calls you are interested in, because the evaluation criteria is your treasure trove. Those are the things that they are they will consider when they evaluate your the quality of your grant proposal. And by looking carefully at these evaluation criteria, you can give yourself full advantageous position when they evaluate your grant proposal, by making sure that you actually implement all what they are looking for. You should also look for grant calls that matches your objectives. So if you want to have a grant for building capacity, or maybe supporting your current research, or maybe supporting your students' research, maybe funding sources to cover your travel costs to collect data, or maybe to participate in conferences and so on, or maybe you are seeking fund to organize an event, whether it is for young researchers or those who are advanced in their career. Maybe you need fund to cover your publication APCs there, or maybe you are seeking funds to establish international collaboration with maybe different countries. And as you can see, each of those objectives are covered by, in some cases, many initiatives and many calls, and most of these are repeated in our case annually. So by knowing your funding sphere and knowing your objectives, you can select the best call to match your objectives. And even if your objective is risky, something like technology development and idea, moving your ideas into technology development phase, which is risky, there are funding agencies that will provide such opportunities for you. And even if you want to increase your income by claiming some income from and some salary from funds, you need to make sure that actually the fund the call actually allows for you to seek salary from those funds. So with these criteria in mind, you are best suited to select the best call that you will have advantage in applying for. Basically and shortly, you want to select the call that actually wants to fund people just like you. You don't have to convince them. It's clear that you are well within their target group. After selecting your call, it's very important to re-evaluate your research topic that you had in mind when you were selecting the call, and you need to frame your research topic in such a way that makes it a research topic that they actually want to fund, and they are eager to fund. How should we select the research topic, and how should we frame it? Simply, we need to make sure that we pick a research category within the call that we have some advantage in. in some cases, your idea might fall under more than one category, and you need to think carefully about where exactly my idea would have a competitive advantage, and how can I frame my idea to fall under a research category that actually gives me a competitive advantage. And this is one of the major reasons for success, because if you place yourself in a category where you are actually different from all the others, and you can stand out from all the others, it will be a huge leap forward towards your success. We need to select some smart research topics. Those are the topics that the funding agency actually wants to fund. Something that is very important, something that is key to the funding agency and to the source from which the fund comes from. So, for example, here in Egypt, unfortunately, is the top importer of wheat, which is a self-sufficiency issue, and a food security issue, and a national security issue. So if you select wheat production and wheat improvement as a topic, this is definitely will be something like water desalination in countries where water resources are limited, especially if you're trying to look for something that is cost efficient, or something that uses some natural resources and so on. Climate resistance, resilience, smart agriculture, those smart topics, those hot topics that the funding agency will love to fund. When you select one of those, it makes it easier for you, because you just have selected a topic that they want to fund. You don't have to convince them; they are already convinced in advance. After selecting the research, the proper call and the proper research topic, it is important to form your team. And as you know, if you want to go far, go together, and no one will deliver a grant proposal by him or herself. You need a team, and the quality of the research expected relies on the quality of the research team that will deliver the research project. And from your research team, the funding agency will know you very, very well. That's why it's very important to select your research team wisely. To select your research team based on qualifications, based on the research, recent publication, recent projects, and research and administrative experiences. Your selection should be qualification based, not based on friendship or any other, personal, irrelevant criterion. You also need to make sure that you have all the disciplines, all the fields needed for your research. All the the disciplines, all the topics are covered, and that should be clear in your research team. All specialties needed are covered and represented. You need also to showcase that your research team is a multi-generation team. You have professors, you have emeritus professors, you have assistant professors, teaching assistants, graduate students, and even undergraduate students, because that showcase that there will be experience exchange between different generations, and energy exchange also between different generations. And this showcase that there will be some career development potential. Young researchers definitely will learn from prominent researchers in the research team, and this is something that the funding agency will really appreciate. The research team also need to be complete and well supported. You will purchase, you will store, you will need accounting and financial support. So it is important to include all those rules in your research team if this is not something that is done by default in your home institution. With this, you have suited yourself for success before you start writing your grant proposal, which is the second phase that we will be discussing in details now. Your title, the title of your grant proposal, is something that you actually need to craft. You need to craft the title, and I cannot emphasize it more. It's bold, it's italic, it's underlined, it's written in red, and it's highlighted. And all this emphasis on the title, because the title is the most read part of, will be the most read part of your grant proposal. Everyone will read it, but the other parts will not be the same, will not be read as many as your title. That's why you need an attractive and informative title, a title that focuses on the novelty. It shows that this idea and this topic is novel, and this proposal is actually about something that is novel and new. And this should be clear in the title. Introduction of ozone tolerance. Introduction means it has not been there before. That means it's new. And also, your title should show the impact of your grant proposal. So it doesn't take anyone more than reading the title to know that actually you are aiming at increasing the Egyptian wheat production. So just from the title, you can tell that it's innovative, it's new, and it aims at making an impact on a key topic like wheat production in Egypt. And this also should apply to your abstract, because these two components of your grant proposal will be the most read ones. The most read one will be the title, and the second will be the abstract, and it's also very emphasized, as you could see. And the abstract should be a microcosm of your grant proposal. It should tell the whole story of your grant proposal. It should be written simply and effectively with clear language to be understood by all readers. That's why we need to use layman language and to avoid sophisticated terminology there, because the evaluation boards will be diverse, and that's why we need to write for diverse readers and diverse board members. In the abstract, we need to effectively answer all the questions using all the magic words, and by the magic words we mean the keywords in the evaluation criteria: quality, innovation, technology, applicability, impact. And if you look at the impact, it's all capital, you know, so it's emphasized, and they are giving you some examples there and some components there. Make sure that when they read your abstract, they see all or as much as you can of these evaluation criteria. You need to effectively answer all the questions. What is the research problem? What is it? Simply, why is it? How is it important? And if you could show the importance in the terms of the benefits from your grant proposal, or at least the cost, the missing or the lost cost that is caused by the problem, that will be very key and very important. You need to tell the readers what do we know about this problem. What do we need to know about it to solve this problem? What are the knowledge gaps that we need to fill? How could we address those knowledge gaps? And we need to discuss the different options for addressing those knowledge gaps, and identify what we exactly propose to use out of those options, and why we have selected this particular approach to address those knowledge gaps, or to solve those problems, or to answer those questions, and what exactly and briefly the proposed research that we want to conduct with the funds. You also need to make sure that you match your objectives to the call's objectives, to tell them, yes, it's me that you want to fund. To do, and there is a direct match between my proposal and your objective as a funding agency, and that should be clear in the grant proposal. And after all of this, you need to conclude with a clear concluding paragraph that brings all these points together and brings it home, summarizing all the key ideas that we have covered in this very last paragraph. Because for many of those who will read your proposal, this will be the last thing that they will see from it, and they either advance it to evaluation or reject it, directly. So this concluding paragraph is of the abstract is a very key and a very important piece that you actually need to craft, not just to write in a rush or to write quickly. After the title and the abstract, which usually are written at last when you have already made your mind, and after you have already completed all the components, usually you go back and you write your abstract and you pick the title. But those two pieces has to be written the way we have described. The next component usually is the research background, which is the first part of the body of your grant proposal. Sorry, and we need to write a compelling research background. This is where we add all the details to those clear and main ideas that we summarized in the abstract, or actually that's where we get those main ideas that we put in the abstract. And again, it needs to be written with simplicity and effectiveness to be understood by all readers. We need to avoid sophisticated terminology unless we have to, and if we do, we need to spell them out and make sure that they are understood by those diverse, committees where where some people are interested in strategy, some people are interested in growth, promotion, all those different perspectives that they come with to the panel. So we need to put in details what is the research problem. Why should we study this problem? Why should we invest in studying it? Why should the funding agency invest in studying it? And yes, I mean the word invest here, because that's how actually they look at it. They look at the money that they will give you as an investment, and they will be looking for a return on this investment, and you need to showcase it. You need to provide some evidence-based estimation of how much the return on investment will be from your grant proposal. You need to avoid exaggerations. That's why you need to use evidence-based. And if you can use, money as your scale, that will be very important. But also you need to cover the different types of impacts, as we will discuss when we make it to the impact section. Why do we know about this problem? What are the previous and current work that has been done or is being done to solve this problem? What do we know? And we need to support this by relevant and most recent references. And it's key to provide some recent references to showcase that you are on top of this topic, and all the recent and new publication around it. What do we need to know? We need to identify the knowledge gaps. And when we identify a knowledge gap, we need to provide some brief introduction to an objective that will solve the knowledge gap. And this will be a very good piece to prepare your readers for your objectives, which will be your next section after the research background. Why, when we write the research background, which is what do we know, what do we need to know, we need to place the research team as a source of experience in this area of research. We need to showcase their previous achievements, their previous research, even their previous pilot studies. We simply need to place the research team as experts in this particular topic. We need also to provide the readers with some idea about the proposed research that we will do to address those knowledge gaps. And again, we need to cite our previous research and showcase how our proposal is actually advantageous and unique, both locally and internationally, and how it is suited to solve this the research problem. We need to identify the added value our research proposal will add into what we actually know to solve the problem. So with this background, you have already convinced the readers that this is an important problem, something that will have impact if we solve it. Here is what we know about it and how we as a research team participated in what we know. It is what we need to know and how we are well suited as a research team to know this, to solve those knowledge gaps. Here is the proposal, the research that we propose, and how this particular type of research is more suitable for solving the problem, and how big of an impact or what are the added values this particular research approach will add. The next part is the objectives, and they have to be captivating objectives, objectives that motivates the funding agency to fund you. And if you recall, when we were talking about identifying the knowledge gaps, we said that we also need to introduce the objectives. And if by doing so, the readers will not be surprised when they see your objectives here, because they are already aligned with the knowledge gaps. So they were expecting them even before they make it to the objectives section. And you need to have this consistency. You need to organize your knowledge gaps logically and to match your objectives to the knowledge gaps, which will make your objective organized by default in a logical order. So the first knowledge gap will be addressed by the first main objective. Second knowledge gap will be addressed by the second main objective, and so on. And when it comes to the specific objectives or the detailed objectives, it's easy because you're going to break down the main objectives into different steps, and each step will be a specific objective, which makes it easier for you to expand and to write this part of your grant proposal. The next part is usually the research approach, or what we call the detailed research approach. And this part should be an interesting research approach, an exciting research approach that the funding agency will be excited to see happening. And usually this part starts with the statement of research approach, which is how you divide your research into different tasks and activities, or maybe sometimes work packages and tasks and activities, depending on how you will structure it. And again, it's simple. You will take the main objective one. This will be the task one. Specific objective 1.1 will be addressed by activity or subtask 1.1, and so on. And this creates a redundancy, a good redundancy, because now people, the structure and the organization of your proposal is actually logical, and people are expecting what to see next, even before they make it there. The next step will be to add the explanation and the narration under each of those detailed activities, which will be the detailed research approach. So you will describe in details the first activity, and you will also reflect on the expected results that will be generated when you implement this activity. And we will take only one task and see what exactly we need to provide in each task. So if we talk about the detailed activity or the detailed or subtask 1, we need to describe how the task will be carried out, providing an up-to-date method with appropriate references, and we need to use visuals to make the research approach clear, as much clear as possible to the readers. To carry out this task according to this method, we will need instruments, we will need chemicals, we will need some input, and the input needed could be something that we already have, which is good to showcase that we already have some resources of our on our own, but also you will need some input to be purchased using the fund, and this will be a very good introduction to your budget, and from here you will get your budget justification. So for example, if you need DNA sequencer here, when they see it in your budget, they will not be surprised, because they know that for this task you will need this instrument, and they will know that you don't have it. That's why you're asking. That's why you're asking for it. For each task, you need also to tell the readers who's the research team member that will be assigned to carry out this task, and they should have the relevant expertise. And if they don't have the experience needed, you have to showcase that they will receive the appropriate training, which is okay. And in fact, it's very appreciated, because when you have someone who doesn't have the experience and train them through the project, that's a career development and improvement. And by coupling those who have experience and increasing the experience in your team, now you have 2 potential team members who can carry out each task, the trainer and the trainee, which makes it which gives you a plan B in case the trainer is not available, or the trainee is not available. That means the trainer is available there too. And for each task, you need to showcase what are the expected results from this subtask. How will the expected results contribute to achieving the objective, and how achieving the objective will help you address the knowledge gap that we started the grant proposal with. And this will provide the reader with a complete story. So we started with a knowledge gap, an objective, a main objective, a sub objective, and then a main task, a subtask, and now we're taking that back to the knowledge gap, which gives you a whole complete cycle. The proper description of what of the input you have here is very important for your budget and your budget justification. And this is important because you will need a well-calculated budget, not just a calculated budget, which should be a good budget. No, you need a well-calculated budget, a budget that shows that you actually are fully aware of what you need to do and how much it costs. You need to adhere to the template, the budget template provided by the funding agency. And if you don't have one, ask for it, or maybe ask someone who has applied to the to this call before, because this will make your life much easier than creating a budget of your own. We need to adhere to the items categories: salaries or incentives, equipment, expendable supplies and material, travel costs, other direct costs, and also the way all the other items of the budget will be calculated in order for you to identify the total project cost. And we need to adhere to the best category for each item and to the proper way of calculating each of those items in order for us to identify this final total. When you provide description of what you need in your budget, you need to provide enough details to prove competence, but don't give them too much details that will restrict your options when you carry out the project. For example, you could say, okay, I need a sequencer with such qualities and specs, but don't narrow your options down too much in case the equipment or the instrument you have in mind is not available at the time you are purchasing. So make sure that you have at least a plan A and plan B, and the details that you provide will allow you to go either ways. So provide enough details to prove competence, but don't restrict your options. For each category of the items in your budget, there will be some maximum, and don't exceed the maximum. Try not to go for the maximum unless you have to. And I have seen grant proposals who ask the maximum and they have been funded, but it's good to leave yourself some room for maneuvering any changes that you will need in a later phase if needed. So don't go for the maximum. Try to be as close to it as possible, but don't shoot for the maximum for everything. Don't shoot for the maximum in salaries, because there will be a range. Don't go for the maximum in salaries. Don't go for the maximum for each item. Use real numbers. Ask about the prices. And use real numbers. Don't round them. And come up with a way of calculating the costs and make it clear for the funding agency. And again, don't speculate. Ask. Do your diligence, and identify the actual cost. Again, provide balanced details, enough to prove competence, but not too much to limit your options. Your budget should be based on your research approach. So try not to surprise the funding agencies with inputs that they have not seen in the research approach, because these will be odd for them. Make sure that anything you ask for is actually there somewhere in one of the tasks as an input needed, and that's why you ask for you list it in your budget. Ask someone to double check your budget. It's very important, because someone will hold a calculator and recalculate the budget for you as part of the review. So double check the math. Let someone check it for you, because if you don't, and there is some error there, it's not going to be good for you to start your financial management experience with a faulty budget. And vice versa. It's very encouraging for the funding agency and their accountants when they double check the math and they found it correct. It's a very good sign that you are a meticulous person. The next part will be the Gantt chart, and it needs to be a well thought out Gantt chart, because the Gantt chart is a project management tool that displays the different activities, such as tasks or events, against time, and it answers all the related questions. What are the various activities? When each activity will begin and end? Where activities overlap with other activities? Where are the activities overlapping will take place? What is the starting date and end date for each task, and also for the whole project? And as you can see, by answering these questions, you're making things very clear, and you're taking the readers very deep into your management skills. And that's why it needs to be well thought out. And let's take a look at an example for a Gantt chart. Definitely, we need to use the template provided by the funding agency. And if they don't advertise one, or if they don't present you one on their website, maybe reach out and ask them for one. And again, you can also ask someone who have applied for this call before and have been granted the fund. We need to be consistent, to use the same numbering system and the same titles that we have been using in the research approach part. As you can see here, we need to put the starting date and end date and the duration for each activity, and each activity should be divided into these sub-activities, and for each of the sub-activities there is a starting date and end date. And it is wise not to end an activity right before the report submission. In case you will need more time, at least you will not have to say in this in this report that you already have completed it. You can say, okay, we have made this much improvement, and we have these parts to be done in the next reporting period. If you have two activities that are going to happen back to back, then maybe you shouldn't make them overlap like this. If you are not sure when an activity will end, maybe it is wise to add extra time for yourself to maneuver and to be able to handle any unexpected delays. If you have listed an activity, you cannot leave it blank like this. When will this happen? There should be some indication here of when this will happen. Otherwise, why do we have it here? And also try not to put everything to be done in a certain period where you have the rest of the research project time free of activities. Be consistent. Use the same numbering that we have been using before in the research approach, as we just described. Be strategic in selecting the starting and end date for each task, and keep the bird's eye view, so you don't overload students with work during their exams, or maybe ask someone to do everything for the project in one time and then leave them without anything to do for the rest of the project. Be careful of the missing details as we have described. You need also to put a very good project management plan. This is the game plan. This is where you can showcase your deep understanding of what your research team can do, what the resources they will need to do, what the objectives are, and how much time it will take each person to do what they are supposed to do. And that's why your project management plan needs to be an insightful project management plan. The project management plan is basically the game plan. How are you plan to use the manpower and the personnel that you have, the infrastructure and instruments and facilities that you have, and the time to deliver the tasks? How do you plan to do so? Again, for the project management plan, we also need to keep the same consistency approach that we had before. We need to keep, the same work package or task or activities structure that we have been using all around. The project management plan should be a chronological order of what will be done first, then what, all the way to the end and the completion of the research project. With clear timeline and clear milestones. And when you put the project management plan, you need to put a clear definition of the research team roles, and to put some accountability for each team member, and who will state clearly each research team member in the different activities and tasks. Describe in details how their progress will be measured, and we need, as listed in the Gantt chart. And also, when you assign a task for a young team member, we need to make sure that we couple that with training and supervision. We need also to showcase that we are aware of risks, the different types of risks, and that we can prevent them or at least mitigate them. And having a plan B, improving team member competency, teamwork and experience transfer, smart timing and layover time, all these are aspects that you can use to showcase that you are aware of the risks and you are actually are well prepared for preventing them and or mitigating them. Many of the funding agencies will require you to provide some data management plan because in many cases the sources for your funding will be public money and public funds, and many of the public funds will require you to provide the public with access to your data, and it's important to be aware what exactly you need to do in order for you to identify the proper data collection plan and how the raw data files will be collected, and how they will be how will the data entry take place, and how will they be verified? How will you store them? and who will have access to them? Who will you share your data? Who you will share your data with? And you need to be very specific because this is each line you will write here will be you will be accounted for later on. We need also to write the outcomes and impacts, and this is one of the key parts of the grant proposal, because you need to write some inspiring project outcomes, something that the funding agency can't wait to see happening. But you need to be specific. You need to list tangible products, tangible outputs, a know-how or a patent, a product, a prototype. Maybe you will develop a state-of-the-art facility at your home institution. Maybe you will purchase an instrument or a device that has not, or an equipment that has not been available in your home institution. Or maybe you will provide some infrastructure that has not been there before. So if your research project will deliver any of these, you should list them, and list them clearly. You should also list the publication as an output. International journals, international articles, international journals, abstracts at conferences, theses and dissertations, graduation projects for undergrad students, maybe some extension documents for those who will apply, the recommendations that you will be able to recommend out based on the data out of your research project. Maybe a stakeholder summary to inform stakeholders of what they need to do when they take decisions based upon your results, or maybe a public summary that will take the information that you were able to generate and the knowledge that you were able to generate using the public fund back, and take the benefit back to the public by informing them. And that's why it's good to have a public summary. Don't shy of listing the career development of your research team as one of the outputs. Team building or training, learning new techniques, or establishing international connections that has not been there before. All these could be considered also as output. Anything that is specific, clear, and measurable, that will be an output of your research. Your research project should be listed. You just need to avoid generalization and exaggerations, and so any specific and measurable benefits only should be listed. You need to write also the financial feasibility part, which is please don't use the annotation option. Thank you. The financial feasibility section of your grant proposal is where you will prove to the funding agency that your project is actually feasible financially. Maybe someone or some entity is interested in co-funding the project, so you have additional fund, or you have fund from other sources, or someone is actually interested in the project output, and they will be willing to pay for the research project output. Any of these two will, assure the funding agency that your research project is actually financially feasible. You might also want to showcase the socio-economic impacts of your project, how your project will help the society, how your project will help the growers produce more, make more, benefits and net income, and maybe they will be able to send their kids to schools and provide more health care to their families that they were not able to do before. So don't shy also from listing the socioeconomic impacts in your grant proposal. You need to be very clear in writing this part. It shouldn't be hidden and spread out. It needs to be in a specific paragraph that starts with, by funding this project, the funding agency will achieve, and then you list the direct and indirect benefits one after another. You need to focus on the added value, the economic, the value and the economic impact of the products to be developed, direct benefits to the industry. Maybe a startup will be developed, or more jobs will be created, industrial investment or interest in the project output in terms of in the shape of contracts, letters of intents, memorandum of mutual interest. Any of these things would showcase that actually there will be socio-economic impact, and it's important when we say economic to provide some numbers there to prove it. There are different types of return on investments. So there is the social return on investment of the project, return of investment by raising awareness of the public, return on investment based on raising the awareness of the stakeholders and help them improve the quality of their decisions they take. And by this, I hope you will have written a rejection-proof grant proposal. What comes after the completion of your first draft is, your project review and project submission and so on. Let's talk about this very briefly. I know we're approaching the end of the session, so I'll go over this very quickly and bear with me. We need to carefully review our proposal before we submit it. Everyone in the research team should review the grant proposal before it is submitted. We also need to submit it early to avoid the technical issues that might happen when everyone is trying to submit the grant proposal in the very last day, or the very last hour, or the very last minute. So at least try to submit at least 1 day before the deadline, which will give you another day in case you face any issues. All team members should review, and non-team members also should review your grant proposal, but they need to be trusted, colleagues for whom you have probably reviewed some grant proposals before they submit it, and vice versa. For submission, again, for a successful submission, it need to be at least 1 day before the deadline. We need to make sure that we have been using the appropriate template we need to review the guidelines for the very last time and make sure that we check all the requirements. And if they don't provide you with a checklist for what needs to be done in the grant proposal, you can make a checklist of your own using the guidelines they have provided. When your proposal get a conditional acceptance, usually go through another round of revision by implementing some comments from the reviewers and making sure that you adhere to all the requirements for the funding agency. And to thrive and survive this the interview, if you are invited to the interview, it is very important to be aware of what happens in the interview and how to set yourself to succeed and to thrive in the interview. You need to arrive at the site early and to know to know all the details and to be relaxed. Your presentation, you should have a backup to remove the stress of your fear of losing your presentation. Be ready for a diverse committee and be ready that some of the reviewers might seem aggressive to you. However, this might not be the case. They might be pretending to be aggressive to see how you respond and how you interact under pressure. And in some cases, this aggression might be genuine. And be ready to deal with diverse, reviewers and committee members. It's good to have a backup. So if you have, if the research, if they ask the funding agency, if two members of the research team could go, the PI and the co-PI, just in case the PI is not feeling so well or something, you still have the co-PI. The other thing too, when two team members go into the interview, they go with two pools of experiences that they can use to answer questions and to present the research project. If you provide a short presentation that will allow for more discussion, try to let the reviewers ask the questions because they are coming to your interview with specific questions in mind. So let them express their questions as they need and as they want, because they definitely will need to come up with answers for those questions. Respect disciplines. So if the PI and the co-PI are co-presenting, it's very important for each of them to refer the questions to the other team member if it's not within their area of expertise. And that shows respect, that shows team work, which will be very useful for you. If you have a prototype, bring it with you. You have a sample, bring it with you, because seeing is believing. Seeing is believing, and it will make a huge impact when people can touch the product. Is different than you trying to explain and to describe it to them. If you receive a conditional acceptance, you need to be careful to navigate this situation. Be appreciative. Appreciate the reviews, because this is another chance that you have been given, and they are telling you what you need to do in order for them to fund your grant proposal, which means they are helping you. Their reviews is actually something that should help you, and that's why you need to be thankful for it. Be objective when you respond to their reviews, and always think win-win. What can I do to help them do what they want to do? And make sure that you make changes within the approved budget, because once they pass you through the conditional acceptance, they should have a total budget set for your project. And if this is different from what you were asking for, that means the changes they are proposing are mandatory. And if you don't agree with something there, that might change the total. So it's good to ask about the total approved budget, and you make your changes within this approved budget to avoid going for an additional through an additional round. And finally, you need to sign the contract. And for each funding agency, they have their own, and for each host institution, they have their own procedure for this. So all you need to do is to ask how to get it funded, how to get it signed. You need to read the contract, and remember, it's important to have read the contract from the beginning, so you don't get surprised. And if you didn't, if you haven't done so, and you found something that you cannot comply with, and you're asking yourself, can I reject the contract? Well, in some cases you cannot. In some cases there will be a penalty if you are selected and you have not accepted and signed the contract. So that's why you need to see the contract early on. If there is something that you were not anticipating and you think you cannot comply with, it's important to bring that up to the funding agency's attention. If there is a conflict of interest between the funding agency and your host institution, then try to bring them to the table together. And believe me, they will find, you know, they will meet in the middle, and they will find a compromise, and they will find a sweet spot where each of the two parties will be able to achieve their own objective, and maybe with some compromise. Receiving the fund will depend on the funding agency's procedures and the host institution's procedures. So you just need to follow the instructions given by the funding agency and given by your home institution. And again, if there is conflict, any conflict between these two procedures, let the two agencies, let the two entities, you know, discuss it and solve it together. With this, you should have written a rejection-proof grant proposal that I hope will help you succeed in funding your research activities and funding your research team. I really thank you so much for your time and for your attention. And I am looking forward to the Q&A part of this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alsayed. Thank you. Your presentation is outstanding and really intensive, and actually, we are happy to have you today. So we are grateful for your time and insights. So now our co-moderator, Dr. Classing, will moderate the Q&A section.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, can you hear me? Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Shahid, for the awesome presentation. In fact, I could say that it's very practical and it's awesome and real realistic, yeah, with the process and all. So right now we'll be taking questions. We're taking questions. So please, if you have questions, you can just use the reaction button, raise your hands. But we have some from Ahmad here, so I'll be sharing them. I think some of the questions you have already answered during the course of the presentation too. So that will kind of shorten the time that will take here. All right. So I'm trying to run through the questions that I have here. All right, so I can start with this. Okay, so Imadi is asking what strategies, okay, how can applicants address potential risks and uncertainties in their proposals without undermining their project viability? So it's just like you have identified certain gaps in your or risk or potential risk and uncertainties in your proposals, and you don't just want to maybe gloss over it. You just also want the reviewers to also be aware, but at the same time, you don't want to undermine the project viability. So how do we address this? I think that is a question from Imad. And then he also asked about how applicants can also tailor their proposals to the specific evaluation criteria. Organization, I think you already answered some part of that. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for this question, it's acknowledging shortcomings in our proposals is very important, because if you neglect some of the downsides of your proposal, as you kindly mentioned, the reviewers will bring that up. So it is important to think of the different ways that we can cover it, either using the different expertise that the research team members already have, or maybe adding additional team members who might be able to address those gaps or shortcomings. And it's important to address that before submitting your proposal. That's why reviewing the grant proposal after it has been completed is very important, because sometimes we don't realize these shortcomings until we make it to the end of writing the proposal.
All right. Thank you so much, Doctor. Okay, I think we still have another question here again from Imad. So he's asking also if you could share examples of projects that faced initial rejection but were successfully revised and ultimately funded. And what were the key changes that made the difference? Maybe you had an experience where, or you've heard about a proposal that was initially submitted, then it was rejected, but later accepted. And what are the key changes that actually led to the acceptance?
I personally had one case where we submitted a grant proposal for Egypt-US bilateral calls, and we were rejected the first time, and it was a missing stamp on the budget page, and wow. that was very, very painful. I remember I was like 3 months away from my PhD defense, and my advisor told me, Saeed, this is a call that I think is designed for us. Put everything aside and please write us something. And we wrote a grant proposal that my other advisor told me that he have never felt overqualified for a grant proposal as he did for that one. And unfortunately, one of the collaborators didn't get the budget page stamped by the institution, and we lost like 9 months. But when we resubmitted that later on, it was funded. So sometimes the small check marks matter. Sometimes they matter. The other experience I had a grant proposal that was conditionally accepted. So they shared some requirements that I had to comply with. Some of them were about adding research team members in specific areas where the research team was not qualified in, which was very good for us because we used that as a justification to ask for more money that we didn't ask for the first time. If you want to add another scientist, well, they should be willing to pay for that scientist, and we did. Sometimes they may provide some. They might ask for some explanations and some clarifications for things, and usually we just give them all the details that they need to know. And I am aware of a case where a colleague of mine was referring to a pilot study that they have conducted, but they have not published yet. And it was key for the funding agency to see it before they approve the fund, because it was very crucial to clarify whether the research team will be able to carry out the project. And they provided them with the data, with access to the data, the preliminary data, and they were funded. So these are some of rejection reasons and maybe conditional acceptance reasons that I have had first-hand experience with.
Wow, thank you so much, Doctor. That's the stamp scenario must have been painful. Actually, I was just saying, wow, yeah. So okay, so on some of the participants are also asking if we could get access to the slides that you shared, if that would be possible. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely will do. Yeah, I'll share it with you guys, and I hope you can share it with the participants.
Much. All right, so I will still have some few questions here. Okay, with limited spacing, we can't ensure that everyone contributes meaningfully to their proposal's overall effectiveness. So that is like effective communication when writing grants. So with limited space in grant applications, how can applicants ensure that every word contributes meaningfully to their proposal's overall effectiveness, considering the maybe the character or pages constraints and all like that? So how to prepare an effective grant proposal?
Well, that's a very good question, and thank you for the colleague who asked it. But I can assure you that when you know what exactly you need to provide in each section, that enables you to be precise and concise. So, for example, if for each task, if you need to share the methodology, then what the input needed, then who will carry out the task, and so this structure takes away any redundance, any unwanted redundance, and any unwanted details. And by the appropriate referencing, if a method is already published, you just say we will conduct this step according to, and you provide the reference, and that's it. You don't have to re-explain the reference. So I think if we follow the guidance and the advices provided in this presentation, I feel like we will be able to provide all the components and parts needed without adding too much additional unnecessary text. In terms of like the research team contribution towards the grant proposal, I think it is important that when we write the grant proposal to respect our disciplines, to respect our areas of expertise, and also to respect the role of the PI. So the PI is the maestro. He's the leader, and he should coordinate with each of the team members what exactly is needed from them, and allow them to contribute in each of those parts, using a document that we all can access at the same time is useful. So each one can see what others have been wrote already, what others have wrote already, might also help. In terms of the page limitation, usually this is something that we know in advance. So for example, if we know that we need 2 pages of methodology and we have 3 sections, at least we know that each of the sections has a maximum of 3/4 of a page or something, or 2/3 of a page. So the maximum number of pages allowed is a good guidance. The other thing too is we need to focus on what makes our proposal stand out. So I could contribute a paragraph to allow a colleague of mine write 3 paragraphs or a whole page, because the part he or she is writing is what exactly will make the grant proposal stand out. So we need to think as a team instead of thinking, as individuals. I hope this answers the question.
Hello, Mr. Placing. Okay, I think there is another question. About is there any template for the proposal?
Usually, thank you, Dr. Noha, for sharing the question. Usually, the funding agencies provide the applicants with a template that they can use, and usually the templates has also some guidance on what exactly and how exactly they need to write and how exactly they should write each section. For example, the STDF, the Science and Technology Development Fund, they have a generic template, and it is the major source I have used in my presentation today, and I definitely can share that with you too.
Okay, I think
Right.
this. Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't aware
Right.
that my microphone was muted. That was why. Right,
Sorry
thank
about
you so
that.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for answering our questions. We really appreciate you for taking your time to be here and to give us this great and awesome presentation. We want to say a very big thank you. Okay, I think we should still have one last question here. Okay. Oh, I think you've answered that already. That is about how applicants can tailor their proposals to specific evaluation criteria priorities outlined by the funding organizations. But I think you've actually gone over that. Yeah, there's this one about in a rapidly changing world, how can grant applicants ensure that their proposals remain relevant and adaptable over time, even after they are submitted? So how to continue to write a relevant grant proposal that is adaptable over time, yeah, and sustainable.
Yeah, the grant proposal is part of, usually will become part of the contract between us and the funding agencies. So a submitted grant proposal will be a static document. So once it is approved, this is exactly what we need to do. And any changes that we need to do to this proposal will have to be approved by the funding agency. And if we want to do something additional or keep our research ideas up to date, we can write other additional grant proposals. But once the grant proposal is submitted, it's supposed to be part of the contract. So it shouldn't change unless we have to, and unless the funding agency approve it.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor. I think that's all for the questions that I have here with me. Thank you so much for your time, Doctor. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Blessing.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I think also the discussion was very effective, and I think this is all about this presentation today. So we can start now to present about African women in GIS and TAG. Or you still have any other comments?
Thanks so much, Dr. Noha, and I'm looking forward to the next presentations.
Okay, thank you so much. And so our co-moderator, Safinaz, you will start your presentation now.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Noha, and thanks all. Thanks, Dr. Said, for your presentation. And glad to have you all today. Let me share my screen.
Okay.
My voice is clear, right? You can hear me? Okay, and you can see my screen, right? Okay, let me start a brief about our community, African women in GIS. Starting with who we are. We are a community made up of African women around the world who work, study, or are enthusiastic about the geospatial industry and its related fields. The community aims to allow its members to be themselves, create networks, gain mentors, get career advice, partake in geo projects to improve their portfolios, access job opportunities, as well as geo course information, and showcase their works to the world. We have our mission and vision. For our mission, to create a safe space for African women in the geospatial industry, irrespective of their career level. For our vision, we aim to bridge the gender gap in the African geospatial industry. For our community, we choose colors, leafy green, our love for nature, peachy black, unity and support among members, light gray, gender equity, pure white, safety and safe spaces. Then let's talk about our history. The community first started out as two separate country groups. Chidima, July 2017 for women in GIS Nigeria. Siana, April 2019 for women in GIS Ghana. Then Siana and Chidima met on LinkedIn and discussed their reasons for creating their respective platforms for women in their individual countries. After the genesis of the African Women in GIS community happened in October 2019, we started our community with 41 Nigerian members, 11 Ghanaian members, and a member from Burkina Faso. Now we are growing. Our community is growing with about more than 500 members residing in more than 30 countries as of May 2022. We had most of our members residing in Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, Egypt, and South Africa. Due to our growth, we currently have about 28 volunteers who help run the organization. Okay. You can see now we have more than 9,000 followers on social media platforms. You can check this map showing our members' location. Why we are here? Why our existence? Because of male-dominated industry, lack of female role models and career guidance, inaccessible GIS job information, inaccessible and affordable GIS events and courses, lack of GIS potential awareness, lack of grassroots awareness. Also, fundamental problems, African GIS industry and other STEAM fields are predominated by men, lack of proper career guidance in the Kuwait school curriculum, lack of exposure of African female GIS role models, lack of grassroots GIS benefits and application awareness amongst students as well as the public. And this is our aim for this year, to increase the awareness among the students, especially high school students, also college students. Gender career tenacity of some African parents. Career path problems, limited number of GIS-related jobs in African countries, inaccessible GIS job information, lack of female GIS mentors for career guidance, inaccessible or unavoidable GIS events and scales upgrade countries. No knowledge of community membership. How are we contributing to solve these challenges? Let me give you our example of our contributions: networking, learning. The main contributions for us: networking, learning, mentorship, awareness. Each community must have activities, and we have many activities, such as this event. We always organize many and different events and different topics related to GIS. Also, we have a mentorship program, but please notice that our membership is restricted only for women. However, all our webinars, events, and most of our activities are made public. And you can see this is some example of our activities: IWD 2020 webinar, 2020 Esri UC, North Star Homecoming Week. Also, we have many internal events. Some activities, collaborations with Digital Earth Africa, Women in Geospatial. Also, we had our own website. We had our blog. You can check it and see what our members done. Also, you can find us on YouTube and subscribe and watch our videos. Some of our members had a physical meeting. Now we are growing. Let me give you a brief about our mentorship program. We started our mentorship program for the first cohort with 9 mentees, 7 mentors. For the second cohort, 20 mentees, 14 mentors. The third one, 22 mentees and 13 mentors and more. Now we are preparing for the next cohort. And this map showing some of our mentees' profile. You can see our community has created a platform which is a source of motivation for African women to take up career paths in GIS. We aim to expand in the coming years to support more African women in the GIS industry, introduce the younger generations to GIS career, help Africa benefit from the applications of GIS and its related fields, as well as the fundamentally bridging the gender gap in the African geospatial industry. We are open to follow African women in Africa or the diaspora who wish to join our social media platforms. You can follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter, and also view our website and subscribe on YouTube. Now view the geospatial world through the eyes of African women. Thanks all for listening. I hope you enjoyed.
Thank
Dr.
you,
Noha?
Safinaz. Thank you so much for this incredible presentation. Now, Mr. Blessing, I will share my screen to start your presentation about that.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Noah. Okay, so good day, everyone. Once again, I'll be giving this short presentation about TAG NG and what we do at TAG. So TAG NG, actually the motive behind the community that we call TAG is that we see a world that constantly needs help. We see that everybody is in need of help at one point in time or the other. And then we also believe in making a difference through positive impacts and providing visionary leadership. So that is basically what we are all about at TAG NG. Can you please go to the next slide? The next slide. Okay, so who we are a gathering of achievers. So TAG is just an acronym for the Achievers Gathering. That is TAG. So we're a gathering of achievers. People are out there to make impact. And then we're a non-profit organization and we are impact oriented. So that is why on our logo, you see it's all about impact, because that is basically what we are how to do as an organization. We are how to improve lives. We are how to impact people positively, to change and be a part of their success story. Next slide, please. Sorry, can you go to the next slide? Okay, so our vision is to impact lives positively. Yeah, so you will be hearing a lot about impact, because basically that is what we are out there to do, just to impact lives positively in whatever way that we can that aligns with our organization's visions and values. So next slide. Okay, can you please go to the next slide? Okay, so our mission statement. So we have to provide quality education through our trainings and seminars. And then we also aim to build leaders who can effect positive changes in their immediate community. And we also aim to be a source of motivation to people willing to take positive actions in their generation. So basically, we aim to achieve this through what we call the ELM approach, and that is education, leadership, and motivation. So under education, we have been doing this over time. We've organized trainings, seminars. In fact, currently we have mentorship programs that are ongoing for young African graduates in the field of forestry and those in geology and mining. And these are the trainings and programs that we are bringing up to better equip young African students that don't have access to opportunities like this. And then we also we also aim to build great leaders, who can not just who can also effect changes in their society. Yeah. So we aim to build great leaders who can become valuable persons in their society. And then also we aim to also be a source of motivation to people who are willing to also be that change in their society. So when you're looking for someone to look up to, when you want to step out to change things in your society, we aim to be those kinds of people that you can actually point to and draw motivation from. So next slide, please. Okay, so our objective is to contribute towards the growth of people. So we know that you, in your journey in life, you will need a lot of help, and we might not be there to provide all the help that you will need, but at least to the extent that our objectives and goal will allow us, we aim to contribute as much as possible to your growth. So can you please go on to the next slide? Okay, and then the strategies that we employ is actually that we have a clear focus on our vision, and then we also constantly innovate in our services. We focus on seeing people succeed, so we're 100% impact oriented, and then we also increase our social media and organic engagements, and then we organize various seminars, we organize various events, we organize various activities for young people all across the world. We've had participants from Portugal, we've had participants from the US, from all over the world, from Ghana, from Nigeria, and then attending our events, seminars, and trainings. And then we also aim to do more, especially as it has to do with achieving SDG 4, that is equitable access to education. So in that aspect, we are aiming to do more in providing access to education, especially to the unreached people of Africa. Let me put it that way: the young Africans who might not actually be able to access such opportunities just by virtue of the environment. But we aim to bring these things to them, train them, equip them, and to better contribute to societies and the global world in general. So next slide. So that should be. Yeah.
This is
Okay,
the
I
last
think
one.
that is the end. Yeah, that's the end of the slide. So if you think this is an organization that you love to be a part of, you can check the chat box for the link. There's a link to join our community. So you can just click on it. We'll be there to welcome you and take you on this exciting journey of impacting world positively. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'm really glad about our collaboration to moderate and organization of this session, and also I'm really looking forward to collaborate again in the future in upcoming sessions. Also, thank you, Dr. Alsayed Mashaheet, for your insightful and informative session. We are honored to have you today. Thank you all to stay till now, and you will find the links to follow us, African Women in GIS and TAG platforms, also to follow Dr. Said Mashaheet and CABI in social media. You will find also the registration link for the form for the participation certificate in the chat box, and the recording of this session will be uploaded soon on our YouTube channel. So see you in the next session, and good night.
Good night.
Thanks all and have a good night. Hope to see you all again.
Thank you all so much. See you all.